Hey, everybody, glad to be back with you again. And today's topic is financial management for a growing business. But before we start, I told David I'm going to give the caveat. We are not CPAs, we are not lawyers. You should consult with your professional advisors on today's topic beyond this show. But we wanted to give you some thoughts and guidelines of this whole thing, because here's the deal, folks. When you start a business, guess what? People start paying you, and then you have money coming in,
Hopefully.
and you need to make, hopefully. and then you have to start managing that money. And this is where a lot of people who haven't run a business before can start to really run into some challenges and struggles. And so, David, I know this is the world you came out of, banking, when you stepped into entrepreneurship. So we're going to really lean on you today with a lot of your thoughts and how you've done this or experienced this. But also just, want to encourage people just to really look around at those who are doing this well after this conversation, so that you can really pick up some tips and ideas.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the journey that probably doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah.
And this is why I wanted to bring it up today. Because look, one of the primary reasons, what is one of the primary reasons we start a business, Chris?
To earn income.
To earn income. And I always look at starting a business, freedom is kind of the word that I use.
Yeah.
But freedom has multiple aspects to it.
Yeah.
It can be freedom of your time. It could be freedom of being able to work on things you care about. But one of the big freedom things most everybody wants is some financial freedom.
Sure.
You want to be able to, because when you work at a salaried position in some organization, that's what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be a good salary. I'm not saying it's not, but you're not in control of that number.
Yeah, it's capped at some level, one way or the other.
One way or another, there's a ceiling and a floor in that. And you don't have the freedom to just say, screw this, I'm going a lot higher. Well, unless you're in sales or have some other.
And then they start cutting your commissions if you're too successful.
Right, exactly. They start changing the rule. Like, wait a minute, you're making too much money. We have to change the rules of the game here. And then the salesperson leaves and has to start over somewhere else. But yeah, not that that's ever been happening before.
I've heard that story so many times. It's crazy.
I know. That's just what are you doing? You're having high success and you're destroying.
You're penalizing me for being successful.
Right. I did what you asked me to do. Yeah. And I did it so well that you don't want me here anymore. I'm like, okay.
But to your point, as we start our businesses, right, that barrier becomes our own barrier. Like we can then say, like if I want to earn more income, then I need to, do a new marketing campaign, or I need to put out a new program or product or whatever. I have to say this though, as you mentioned, what people are looking for, that freedom, but with great freedom comes great responsibility, David.
Okay, Spider-Man. Okay, Spider-Man. Here we go. All right. Well, and the truth is like when you become an entrepreneur, you do have the ability to make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But once you get the systems in place, once you get everything built, once you get the momentum going, the money could start flowing in fast. Mm-hmm. It really can, because you're not capped by someone else's system.
Right.
You can create a system where the money is just like, whoa. And I did. I had months where I made more in a month than I used to make in a year.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're all of a sudden going, whoa. But the other side of the coin is so many entrepreneurs, even though they have this much money coming in, are still struggling financially.
Yeah.
They're struggling. And one of the first and primary reasons, the first thing I want to talk about is setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Like, do you actually have a plan for managing your money? And it doesn't need to be a complicated plan. It doesn't need to be this vast array of spreadsheets and QuickBooks and all these things integrated, right. Especially when you first start out. Don't even worry about that kind of stuff.
Right. And I think there are some people that worry so much about that on the front end before they ever have a dime, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I still remember speaking at a conference several years ago, and a person was asking me all about how their accounting system should be set up for their business. And I was on stage, so I was doing Q&A, and they're asking me from the audience all these different questions about their accounting stuff. And then I finally asked a question back and said, so how many clients do you have? Well, none. And I looked at, so what do you need an accounting system for?
You can count to zero pretty easily.
Right. I'd be like, you have nothing in your accounting. Why do you
Yeah.
need to worry about an accounting system if you don't have anything to count? I mean,
Yeah.
so again, you don't need something complicated. You don't need this whole setup. At the end of the day, you need to have a good, reasonable understanding of this is about what I'm making every month.
Yeah.
So the number that I spend every month needs to be a smaller number.
Right.
And that sounds incredibly simple, but that applies. I don't care if you're making $100 a month.
Right.
If all you're making at this point is $100 a month, you're very part-time, you're just getting started, just getting a little bit of work here and there on the side, great. But that number that you spend on the stuff that you need to support your business needs to be smaller than $100.
Right.
If you're making $100,000 a month, the number needs to be smaller than $100,000.
Right.
And so you have to be able to set yourself up and know that even on a basic level, I have to make sure that I'm not overspending, because this is the problem. And one of the things that happens to entrepreneurs all the time, and there's even a term for it called shiny object syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about being an entrepreneur is, oh man, there's always somebody pitching you for something.
Mm-hmm.
When you are a business owner, someone is always pitching you. Like I remember a couple of weeks ago, Chris, we have a weekly team call that we do, and it's at 10 o'clock Eastern on Wednesdays where we do that call.
Yep.
I remember one Wednesday before 10 o'clock, before we started, I had already received 7 pitch emails before 10 o'clock. I had 7 of them before we had even gotten to 10 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop. But this is what you're going to get all the time. You're going to get bombarded with opportunities. I can grow your leads. I can grow your sales. I can get you more clicks. I can grow your YouTube presence. It goes on and on and on. And sometimes they're true. Many times they're not.
Right.
But it's very easy to get sucked into especially once you start getting some momentum. You start getting, well, we could do that and we can get that growing and that could be bigger. And then because once the momentum starts happening, once you start getting some success, you start going like, well, what else can we do? Because now we have a system in place. We're starting to make some money. We're starting to get clients. This is good.
Well, I think, and I think to that point, though, I think that happens in 2 different stages, right? One is when you're building the front end of your business. I think we can fall into the trap. I know I have at times of purchasing software things that you think you have to have a business.
Right.
So that happens on the front end when you're not even necessarily even generating income yet, but you feel like, well, if I don't have X, Y, or Z, I'm not going to be able to generate the revenue. But then to your point, as you get going, then it's about scaling opportunities and people pitching that, because you get emails. I get LinkedIn messages daily of how somebody's going to help,
I think they've given up on me because I never respond.
Yeah.
Just nope.
For me, it's always like, I help coaches, get 30 high ticket leads a month. And I'm like, that's a lead as a promise. Like, how many sales out of those 30 do you guarantee? They can't guarantee
all
any.
of them are from India and they all have $0.
Right. So it's like I guess they can promise they get you a lead. They can't promise that lead's going to turn into anything.
Right. Exactly. But that kind of stuff, you're right. There's a level of, well, I need to have, a software for my website. I need to have an email service. Yep. I need to have, a funnel service. I need to have, and all of these things, and you can start adding them in.
Yep.
And I tell people, especially when they're first getting started, I said, no, here's what you need. You should have a website so people can find you.
Right.
And a place to put your offers.
Yeah.
A place to have information about you and a place to list and to communicate the value of what you're offering. You should have that, but you can do that with a simple WordPress site.
Right.
Get a simple hosting plan. It doesn't need to be ultra high-end expensive. Just get a simple hosting plan and get a WordPress website. WordPress is free, so you don't have to do that. You just do that and put up a website, get a theme on it, and you're good. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money. You should have a way of taking up emails and building an email list and having that going on. So you should have some type of, and you can even start with something like MailChimp, which is free for the first while.
Right.
Until like whatever, 1,000 or so. I forget what the number is, but
they've changed that over the years, but there's always, each of these
free
have a free version to get you started.
So you can get started on that and a way to take payments.
Yeah.
And you could use PayPal and Stripe, which don't have monthly fees either.
Right.
So you can get started for very little. And when I see people, well, I bought into that software, I bought into that, and I'm just like, you don't need to do that yet.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. You do not need to buy all these high-end software programs to get your business started. And so you're 100% right, but it's still shiny object syndrome. It just keeps going.
Oh, and it's also scarcity thinking because, you know, I remember when I first started my business, I bought the Lead Pages software.
I had that too.
And it was only because I saw somebody that I was kind of following. They were talking about that. Well, guess what? They were an affiliate.
Right.
They were basically.
Was that Amy Porterfield by chance?
No, it wasn't her.
That was
I didn't know about her yet.
Right.
But the reality was I got this software and I think it was like $400 a year.
Right.
I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't understand anything about marketing and funnels and any of this stuff that we're talking about in our show.
You had to have it.
But I felt like I had to have it because I didn't, evidently this is what people do. And then I remember getting the renewal bill like 12 months later because I didn't use it for that first 12 months to any level. I tried, but I still didn't get it, right? I got that renewal bill and I'm like, no, I don't even have the money yet to pay that bill. So I was like emailing them like, can I get a refund on this? And they did. They stopped the subscription. But to that point, I'm like, that was my first taste of this where I knew I truly wasted my money on a software that I thought I needed, but I didn't know how to use it and I had no plan for it.
Right. And so that's exactly it. And the reality is that especially in the entrepreneur space, there's a lot of really good salespeople.
Oh, there are.
There's a lot of people.
As soon as you start putting out your business, that you're an entrepreneur, you watch your Facebook or your Instagram or your LinkedIn feed change, right? The pitches, the algorithms hit you all, one after another.
Right. 100% agreed. So you're getting all these pitches. If you only had this in your business would explode. If you only had that, you would have so many more leads. You would have so many more conversions. And it goes on and on and on. And again, some of them are good tools. I'm not trying to say that all of these are garbage. That's not true. But I've also experienced a lot of these places making all these promises.
Yeah.
A lot of them couldn't deliver because we even signed on to a few things. And at the end of the day, they didn't deliver at all.
But even the right tool at the wrong time is a wrong tool, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So what I would say is don't add in tools that unless you really, really need them.
Yeah.
And again, when you first start out, you can start out, like I said, if you have a website to communicate your value and your offers, you have an email list to collect emails so you can communicate with your leads, and you have a way of taking payment. That's really all you need to get started. And that's a pretty shoestring budget.
Yep.
You do not need a lot more than that. And as you grow your business, you can expand what you have, but you don't need that. And so the other part of this is when you do start getting to that point where you're like, well, I want to know, I could hire, I need help. I'm starting to get some momentum, starting to build. Now, there's these people that are offering, to run all my Facebook ads for me, but they charge like a monthly couple $1,000s a month to provide the service. And okay, you can look at that, but the only thing I would say to you is you have to have a way in place ahead of time to ensure that you have the cash flow to pay for it.
Correct.
And that could be things like, I could do a special promotion of something that I offered that would generate the cash flow to pay for this.
Right.
Or I could take on this extra side work. I could do these extra things to take it on to pay for this thing. Have a plan in place. Don't just jump into it and go like this and cross your fingers and go, I'm going to do this and I'm going to spend all this money and just hope and pray that it works.
Right.
No.
Well, and to your point, with that, I like where one of my mental shifts along the journey was if I can, whatever tool it is, right? To your point, if I'm going to use that, and I find a way to fund it, then I'm like, well, then I get that tool for free because I have that plan in place to generate that, whether it's a $25 a month or $500 a month, kind of an expense. As long as I know I've got the revenue to pay for that, then that tool is free to build on, and then I can multiply the use of that. But it took me a while to understand because I think a lot of people, David, and you and I have talked about this before, where when people step into entrepreneurship and that's not been the world they've been in, we think more like consumers than the creator side, right? And so we think about everything as an expense So there are things that are an investment in your business, but to your point, you have to make sure that you have a way to fund that investment so that it can produce. I mean, the whole point of investments, right, is to produce and multiply
Right.
your money.
And some of these are good ideas. I mean,
Mhm.
we have absolutely had things that, when we first started working, we were like really struggling with the notion of, do we bring a person on to help us, like a
Mhm.
paid
Right.
person to bring on and take off some of the work on us off of our plates that
Right.
get other things done. And that actually worked out very well for us,
Yeah.
because once we got a lot of these administrative things off our plates and we didn't have to do them ourselves anymore,
Right.
now all of a sudden we could focus our energies on promoting and growing the business.
Right.
And all of a sudden we realized that it was a multiplier effect. Like,
Correct.
we spent $1,000 on that person's hours for doing all these tasks. We may get $4,000 or $5,000 worth of additional revenue in, because we're
Right. You're free to go build the business.
we're free to go do those things. So it does work that way, but you need to have a plan.
Right.
That, again, especially in the earlier days, you need to have a plan. Like, even if this thing doesn't work, I can pay for it.
Right.
And we're going to try it. And I have the cash flow, or I
Right.
have the savings that I know that I'm willing to invest and take a shot at this. But then don't hold on to it forever. Like, if it's not working, don't keep doing it.
Right.
End it if it didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
And then go ahead. Do you want to say something?
No.
Okay. So again, as you're growing, as you're doing it, having those plans in place, having it and saying, okay, here's the reality. This may work, it may not work. And that's, even though there's some salespeople that are going to make you fully convinced that this is going to work, it may work and it may not work for you.
Yeah.
So plan for the downside,
right,
of it potentially not working. And are you still financially okay if it doesn't?
Correct.
If you are, great. Then you're probably okay and you can absorb it. But too many times people just go into debt.
Right.
They let it pile up on credit cards, and now you're paying credit card interest and fees, and this thing just snowballs. And suddenly you're so far behind the 8 ball, you can't see the light of day anymore.
Right.
And you put yourself in a very dangerous position where you're under immense pressure and stress.
Yeah.
Just you have to generate all this extra cash flow now just to pay down debt.
Right.
And the goal of doing this isn't to accumulate debt, it's to accumulate wealth.
Correct.
And so you need to stay out of that. Now, the next phase that I want to talk about a little bit is, look, there comes a point in time where things do start to take off. We're like, okay, you found the right triggers. Mm-hmm. You found the right tools. You got the right systems and processes in place. And now the business it's starting to grow.
Right.
And things are taking off. And I will never forget that point in my life. This is going back quite a few years ago now. The very first year that things started to go, because we had several years in the front end of like grinding, building, grinding, putting that together, putting this together. Right. And then one year it started to click and we started to see the money come in. And I had actually, for the first time in my life, made 6 figures that year. Mm-hmm. It was like, whoa, and I actually, in my little business checking account, actually had some money in it. And I was like,
it's a great feeling, isn't it?
I was like, I'm not actually figuring out, okay, I'm so, I got to watch this. I can't buy that. I can't do that because, I actually had some cushion. I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. This is great. And what happened next? Well,
the tax man came a knocking.
The tax man came and drained my bank account dry. I had no plan for taxes because I had never been in that position like that before. I had no strategy in place. And so Uncle Sam came with this vacuum cleaner and went straight into my bank account and emptied it.
Yeah.
Took everything that I had earned. And if you ever wanted to see me angry, that was the time. If you were wanting to see me ready to put my fist through a wall, which I thankfully did not do, that would have been the day.
Put holes in the wall, though, but that's another story.
Well,
not with the fist.
That was a complete accident. Come on now, let's not go there. I slipped and dropped something and it hit it. Okay, that was not an act of anger. That was an act of poor
stupidity.
Yeah, stupidity and
lack of planning.
Yeah, and I dropped something and it fell and rammed into the wall, and now I'm sitting there going, "Uh-oh." Anyway,
but continue.
But yes, back on track here. But I had to learn a hard lesson, is that the biggest expense you have in life is taxes. especially once things start going well. And if you don't have a plan in place to handle that, you're going to, and this is what happened to me that first year, is all that money that I earned, all that progress because I was working like a dog.
Yeah.
Trying to build this thing, and finally felt like there was finally a reward.
Yeah.
I was finally starting to get rewarded for all of this effort, all these late nights, all this blood, sweat, and tears I was pouring into it. And they took every last bit of it away.
Yeah.
And I was so upset. I was just like, I just worked my tail off this year for nothing.
Yeah.
Because the government took all the money I made.
Yeah.
And because I did not have a plan in place. And I was like, this can never happen again.
Yeah.
And so I knew that if I played the game the way I was playing it, because as long as my income was low, they
leave you alone.
They leave you alone. But as soon as you start becoming successful, they try and clobber you because they don't want you to be successful. This is a business principle you better learn in your life. The government doesn't want you to succeed. That's just something you got to get through your thick skull. They don't want you to win. And if you start to win, they're going to come after you and they're going to try and beat you back down into a lower level.
Yeah.
So, but there are ways, there are plans, there are things that you can do to counteract some of those things.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you're avoiding the tax forever.
Right.
What you're doing is you can defer a lot of things.
Right.
And so that year I had to go out and I had to go find a financial planner because even though I know a lot of those things and a lot of things I could do, I was so busy working in the business that I wasn't getting them done.
Right.
I needed help.
Right.
I needed someone to come alongside me. I needed someone to give me who was watching the markets regularly on a daily basis, who
knew what to watch for.
Who knew what to watch for, who knew the tax laws, because I was so consumed by my business.
Right.
That I was no longer up to date on a lot of this stuff.
Right.
I just didn't have the bandwidth and the time to do it anymore. And so what they did was they sat down and again, I had to find the right people for me. And when I would recommend one thing, if you're looking for a financial advisor, find someone who is a fiduciary. Okay. A fiduciary is a different type of financial advisor. Now there's lots of brokers out there. There's lots of investment advisors out there, but a fiduciary is someone or an organization who is legally obligated to put your interests ahead of theirs.
Yeah.
They do not trade your account as this can happen. They'll start trading your account just to generate commissions for themselves. They'll just start putting you in these high commission investment vehicles.
Whether they're good for you or not.
Right. Not necessarily the best choice for you, but boy, it sure makes them a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's a danger here. You have to be very careful. That's why when I learned that the term to look for in an investment advisor is, are you a fiduciary?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, thank you very much. I'm going on to the next person.
Yeah.
Because a fiduciary operates differently. And like the people that I work, just take a small asset management fee every year. That's a small percentage. They don't charge me commissions. They're not, they don't put me in investment vehicles that have all big, mutual funds with big front end loads that pay. They go for the low cost, tax efficient things. They're doing all that, and they just get paid a small percentage of the total money we have under management, which is a much better model because now they're much more incentivized to do well for me to keep me as a client, to keep going. But they also help me with a lot of tax planning strategies. They help me set up, do things to set up a self-directed 401k.
Yeah.
To set up what was later a cash balance plan, which was another step in there. So I could start taking this money that I was making and putting it into a retirement plan for myself. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm never paying taxes on it, but that means that, when you start making more money, you get into the higher tax brackets, and now you're paying at least 50, 60% by the time it's all done of every dollar that you make in taxes.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get ahead very far into that. But if you put a bunch of that money away into a tax deferred account, you've kind of moved the ball out of the game. And so I did a lot of that. And I had brought in an accountant that could help me from the tax side. And they started helping me set up things like payroll accounts and different things, even though I was a single employee LLC, they would set up those types of things. And I would get all this stuff in place, which helped me bring that tax liability down.
Right.
Now, do these people cost money? They do.
Not as much as the tax man.
But I was already paying big fees. I was already paying way more in taxes. So the percentage of money that I was spending on these professionals to help me is still less than the money that I was giving up in taxes. And so if you plan for this, suddenly that money, yes, you don't get to spend it today, but it's set aside for your future retirement.
Right.
You're now staring at it going, okay, 75-year-old David is going to be very grateful that I set the money aside for him.
Sure.
I put it out there for him to use. The guy 25 years out into the future, I'm putting it aside for that version of myself. So it's still there and I can still utilize it somewhere down the road. And if I'm retired at that point, then I will have a much lower income bracket and I can start taking that money out slowly and not have to pay the high rate of taxes on it. And all these strategies are there, but you need to be planning for it.
Well, I think this is an important point because what you're saying, you know, I had a friend of mine griping one time about rich people not paying their taxes, you know, based on the media trap stuff. And I messaged her.
That just makes me mad.
I know it does. but I said to her, I said, you're attacking you're going after people that are successful. You know, the reality is those people know how to protect their money. Right. They're working within the laws. They're working within. Now, I'm not saying everybody does.
And they're still paying way more taxes than you are.
Correct.
So if someone needs to pay here's what I always come back to people like that on. The bottom 50% of Americans pay zero taxes.
Right.
So you
get money back. If you get money back.
And the top 20% pay like 90% of the taxes. And you want to talk about paying the fair share?
Yeah.
I'm going to reverse that and say, how about the bottom 50% put something in?
Yeah.
Because the people at the top are paying everything.
Right.
And you've been so diluted by all that politicization and marketing that you bought into a lie.
Yeah. But that's the point, right? Is that because to your point, David, as we increase our income, we have to be wiser about it and play the game. That there is a game, right? There's a game, and you have to learn how to play the game, learn the rules of the game, so that and get others involved, like you said, like a financial advisor and a accountant, even lawyers at times, like the people that truly understand the game that can then advise you and help you win the game. And so I think this is a really important topic, folks, because you may feel like, well, that seems so far off for me right now. And that may be true, like as far as a timeline that it may be down the line for you. But the more you can learn that and understand that and know that today and start to at least get mentally prepared for it, you're not going to, you know, hopefully get caught like David was that first year of going, oh my gosh, they're wiping me out.
Right. And I'll just add this final kind of comment in here and I'm kind of wrapping all this idea up. And that is like, well, who do I hire? Who do I trust? Whether it be for the people to help me grow my business, because in the earlier part of our conversation, we talked about like the people who come in and make all these promises to you about, oh, I can give you 30, new leads a month, or I can do this or that. How do you know who to bring in? Because some of these people can legitimately help you. Some of these people are full of it.
Right.
Unfortunately, most of them are full of it. And they're making a lot of promises that they won't deliver on.
Right.
But also, like when I'm bringing in someone to be a financial advisor or an accountant, who do I trust to bring in? Because there's all sorts of stories of those too, of financial advisors who took advantage of their clients. Famous athletes who made millions and millions of dollars and now are broke because the financial advisors stole all their money.
Right.
How do I bring people in? And there's this little rule that I've developed for myself. And, Chris, I'm sure that you probably had this experience too, where you were considering doing something and you really weren't sure. You're really uneasy about the decision. I don't know if I should do it or I shouldn't do it. But the person on the other side was a really good salesperson.
Right.
And they talked you into it.
Yeah.
And they convinced you, yeah, go do it. You should do this. And then it didn't go well.
Right.
It didn't end well. And at the end, what are you feeling? You're feeling like, I knew I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You have that feeling in your gut. There's like this feeling in your heart that's just like, I never felt really good
Never
about
felt
this.
good about it.
I never felt, really solid about this. But I got talked into it and now it didn't go well. And I just knew I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Well, I have this little thing that I do now whenever I make decisions. And I did this when I hired our financial advisors. Do I have peace about this decision? Without anybody trying to pressure me, because I'm at a point now in my life. Yeah, I've heard all your sales pitches. They're not working on me. Work because I see you coming.
But here's the thing, David. You're a tough sale. I have been an easy sale at times, so I'm resonating with you here. But I think that you have stood your ground probably more than some of us.
Right. Well, that's probably true because I look at it and go, "You're full of it. You're so full of it. I don't believe half of what you're saying." But anyway, I asked myself a simple question: how much at peace am I about proceeding with this person?
Yeah.
Because if there's that point in me where I can't get there,
right?
I'm not at complete peace about this. I am not feeling 100% confident about this decision. I am not feeling completely like, yes, this is the person I'm supposed to work with. This is the direction I should be going. Yes, this is where I should be. If I can't get there,
right?
If I can't get to that place where I'm very much at peace with the decision, I say no.
Right.
I don't do it.
Yeah.
And that has guided me so well over these last many years. Like if there's something here that is just like, no, I've learned to trust my gut.
Yeah.
I've learned to have that guttural instinct play. I let it play. And if there's that part of me that's just like, I don't know about this. I still have reservations. I still have uncertainty that this is a good choice. If I feel that inside of me, if I have that sense of like, I'm not really sure,
right?
I'm not really sure about this, then I'm just like, David, listen to your gut.
Yeah.
Say no. And that has saved me from a lot of headaches over the years.
And here's the thing, right? Sometimes that no is not permanent, right? Sometimes it's I need to slow down and learn something, or
I'm not ready for this.
I'm not ready for it, right? And that's so I agree with that. I agree with everything you said there because I think that we do. I mean, we live in a very over marketed, over advertised world, right? And that doesn't it affects every realm. So if you think that every financial advisor is good and honest and everything, just but you don't think every car salesman is, right? But so I think, and it is, this is very personal. And I think this topic is very personal today of, yes, it's about tactics of managing your resources from a stewardship standpoint of your money and your income, but it's also right. From the financial advisor thing, right? I think about it as it's who do you trust? Who can you trust? What have they done to earn that trust? And you can't jump into that lightly because I think that's where people get into trouble. Like you mentioned, it's amazing to see athletes that have made millions of dollars over a 5, 10 year, 15-year career go broke, like in the first 2 or 3 years of their, but what happened was they weren't prepared to handle the influx of cash that they were getting and they squandered it. Nobody taught them probably in many cases. No. And then they had somebody come alongside that was a shark.
Right.
And they saw an easy target. Well, we're trying to say don't be that easy target because by starting to think about these things today.
Well, think about an entertainer, MC Hammer. That guy made mountains of money.
Yeah.
I mean, by mountains of money. And by all understanding, he's broke.
Yeah.
Because everyone around, he did not have a plan. He did not have a way of saying no. And everyone took him and used him and took all of his money away. I mean, there's other stories. I remember growing up hearing stories of like, this is more like for like football players who played like 70s, 80s time frame.
Yeah.
But you would then hear stories about later on how they're living under a bridge.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what?
But then
he was an athlete, and now they don't even have a place to sleep at night.
Yeah. And the good news is, right, there are some good stories. I think that like in their cases, right, you're seeing more educated athletes, more educated celebrities coming out because, you look at like Shaquille O'Neal, he's a very wise entrepreneur and businessman now after a successful NBA career. There's others that are now following down that path. You know, LeBron James has built an empire beyond his basketball career.
Right.
Michael Jordan, you know, like all these guys, but to your point, those guys are the ones we know about. The ones we don't hear about are the ones who squandered it and just didn't know or were taken advantage of. So,
Right.
you know, we're not talking to the celebrity pro athlete crowd here, but folks, here's the thing: every dollar you spend in your business needs to be wisely managed if you're going to ultimately build wealth and be successful. And both of us, David, we've learned through trial and error a lot of different lessons. What you shared today was super helpful. I know for me, even a while ago, I was like, I need to go back and review the expenses I have, because some things just become so, like, you're just so used to having certain tools or things. And I realized I cut out a lot of monthly payments that weren't massively big, but I'm like, they're cutting into my income because I don't really use these things or need these things. I know that we had a client in our Design Lunch Grow program where you looked at what was the need and saved her $1,000 by just a quick review of the tools.
Right.
So sometimes, we all want to earn more money, but many times we can earn more money by saving things, by cutting out and being wise about those things we're paying for. And
Well, you get to keep the money that you actually earned in the first place.
Right. So do this, if nothing else, right? Start by reviewing, what are you spending your money on? There's some of those like monthly recurring, subscription things that you really don't even need or you haven't used in a while, but it's taken $10 a month or $30 a month out of your account. And you're like, wait a second, I could reinvest that. I could just use that for my personal benefit, but I'm donating it right now.
Right. I could just keep the money. I don't need to pay this.
Right. So folks, if you need help along this line to really think through, once again, we're not CPAs, we're not fiduciaries, we're not lawyers and accountants here, but when you come into our Design Launch Grow coaching program, we help you think about these types of things and making sure that you have talked to the right people, making sure you have thought about things. And so not only if you need help with building your business and developing and designing that business to be profitable and successful, to help the people you feel called to serve, but we also want to help you be wise stewards, managers of what you earn and what you do, so that you can truly benefit personally. Because like David said at the very beginning, we have the opportunity as entrepreneurs to build a life that we love, but we don't want that dream to turn into a nightmare because we've allowed this whole piece of financial management to go off the rails. And it happens too often, too frequently, to really good people. And a lot of it just comes down to the things we talked about today of lack of planning, lack of foresight. So check out designlaunchgrow.com. We'd love to have you join our program to help you with building your business, scaling that business, and truly turning it into that lifestyle and friendly business, that lifestyle freedom that you desire, so that you can really live the life of your dreams. So take care, and we will see you next time.